And we're back with TSPN, and we have with us one of my favorite people, Anelie
Hi,
Beldon.
it's good to be here again.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's fair time. Who can't be doing great right now?
That's right. Now, you're with the Amador Quilters.
Yeah, actually, there's two guilds, Sierra Gold Quilt Guild and Motherlode Quilt Guild.
Okay,
so
so
they both represent
And you
Amador
always tell
County.
me that, and I always forget.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's fine.
But you have some gorgeous quilts. I'm a quilt fan. My wife and I have a lot of quilts.
Uh-huh.
A lot of old quilts with tears in them and things like that, but that's part of the character, right?
Yeah, it is. And you know, if you go to the fair, there's a gal there who repairs quilts. Her name is Rita Maddock, and she's with Motherlode Quilt Guild. So you can ask about it, and I'm sure they'll give you her information. So if you have an old quilt that has a tear, by all means, if you have it repaired, then you don't feel so bad about laying it back on your bed or using it.
It's not like an antique where if you repair it, it devalues it?
No, not necessarily, especially if you get someone like her to repair it because she knows what she's doing. She has a collection of old fabrics that she can add to it or ways to make it that you don't even know that it's been fixed.
Since we're talking about the fair, you said for the quilts are on display up in, is it Pokerville?
Yes, Pokerville Hall.
And that's where all of the quilts are displayed as well. You said there is an opportunity. You can get a quilt for $1.
$1. It's unbelievable. And they are masterpieces. They are just beautiful. Both of the guilds, they sell raffle tickets, or they call them an opportunity quilt, so to raise money to help provide for materials. We make quilts, both guilds, for the senior center and the pregnancy center, and we do a lot of donations throughout Amador County. And these funds that we raise with the quilts helps provide us to be able to do that. So $1.
You might get a quilt for $1.
You might get a quilt for $1. So it's worth the chance. And when you see the quilts, you're going to want at least 5 chances or more. They're just beautiful this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and no limit on the amount of tickets you can.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about these quilts and these other pieces. I guess this is a wall hanging?
Yeah, this is a wall hanging. You know, a lot of people think of quilts as being ones that you have to put on a bed, but wall hangings are something that we use to decorate. We hang them very much like pictures on our wall to decorate our homes. This one I was teaching on a cruise to Mexico, and I purchased a Talavera plate, and so I designed this one from that. This is applique, so that was all hand-stitched.
And let's talk about this one. This is an art piece?
Art quilts, yeah. Again, you know, it's not the old-fashioned quilt. This is, once again, a piece that you can hang on your wall, and it's very modern. It has beads on it and buttons.
Yeah, point out those beads and buttons.
We have a really beautiful antique button right here, and we've got some yellow beads trickling down. A little ladybug button here, and a nice antique purple button here. And the beads just add some glittering to it and some special beading showing along with the stitching here.
I think it's interesting that you don't really see the beauty of these. I know when the camera zoomed in on them, the color just burst out.
Right. They're pretty incredible.
Let's talk about some of these other quilts. And you made most of these.
Yeah,
right?
these are all ones that I've pieced, not necessarily quilted. It's very common, and people don't know this, but piecing is putting together the parts of the quilt, you know, so that you create this design.
Why don't you explain that?
So I'm sewing all of these fabrics together, cutting them out and sewing them. That's the piecing part of the quilting. And then we have the quilting. You see this beautiful stitching here that's done. And a lot of women don't do the quilting because they're afraid to do that. And as a matter of fact, this quilt here that I pieced, Susan Huntington, a friend of mine, she quilted this. And she's an award-winning quilter. She's won blue ribbons at some of the larger quilt shows. So.
Okay, and that's maybe not in so much detail because of time, but some of these others, this one?
Yeah, this one here is just a larger piece. This is a little bit more traditional, so you'll be seeing a lot of variety of what I have here. It's not just the old-fashioned
And then
look.
this one.
Yeah, this
and
is
the purse.
Yeah, you know, there's purses and pillows and other things too to view.
It'd be like a man.
There you go. We could, if it wasn't the right fabric, maybe we could get away with it. So lots to see. There's over 50 quilts being displayed. Both of the guilds will be there representing the quilting community in Amador County. You can ask them any questions you want.
Like how to join?
How to join, absolutely. There's an evening guild and a daytime guild.
If somebody says, I've never done a quilt in my life.
They could do that, or they could call me. You know, I teach, so I'd love to teach them. I teach at the Sewing Cottage, and they could get in touch, and there'll be lots of information there for them. It's a great pastime, and you know what's even more so is the friendships and the bonding that comes about from women getting together and quilt, just like the old-fashioned days. Or men, yep, we do have men in our guild.
There are some men that quilt.
That's right. Or appreciate them as much as you guys do. So.
That's right.
Yeah.
The other nice thing, Oh,
Oh,
we
yeah,
the
we got a
pillow.
pillow here that I wanted to show too, so.
Oh.
So the quilting can be brought into other areas of the home, for decorating, so.
You know, the great thing about quilts, and people don't really think about it right now because it's warm.
Right.
But in the wintertime, there's nothing better than getting under a quilt.
That's true, that's true. And the loving hands and stitches that put into it, I think that's why they're so, so popular. People really put a lot of time and effort into them, and so to have one, it's cherished.
And as quilts age, they pick up a lot of value too. As I know, we were talking before the show, and when I was younger, my wife and I could not afford to buy a quilt that
Right.
we wanted, but
Yeah.
that's from one of our local vendors in Amador City. But the quilts, do you actually sell these too?
Yes, and you'll find that when you go to the different quilt shows that the guilds do, that often there's quilts for sale. But usually the price tag is pretty high, and people kind of are taken aback. But the amount of hours, let alone the fabric. Fabric's $12 a yard now, so.
$4 a yard. But let's talk about this time-wise. What does it take to put a quilt like this together?
Probably, this is actually a very complicated pattern. This probably took about 80 hours to piece. Probably another 20 hours to quilt, and then you have the cost of the fabric and the thread. Thread, oh my gosh, is $6 a spool.
Now,
It's crazy.
when you sit down to quilt, are you doing it for hours on end, or is it like reading a book where you get into it and you can't stop?
I do. Sometimes I put a book on tape on, or I listen to some really wonderful music, and it kind of takes you away. For me, it's a relaxing hobby. Yeah.
I love quilts because they're beautiful, but two, they provide the warmth and the comfort, but a lot of them have the history too.
Yeah, and stories. You can have, I do a class on t-shirt quilts where we've taken, like I had a student who had her husband's a fireman, and he retired, so he took some of his fireman shirts and put them in a quilt. So
Wow.
rather than them sitting in the closet, he has something that he can look at and remember his years as a fireman, so.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine who made me not a quilt, but an Afghan, so you don't really go into Afghans and things like that, right?
No, that's more knitting and crocheting, so that's
Okay.
really a
That's
different
a
art, although many of the women, they do both,
Yeah. But you're talking about a theme. What she did, she knows I'm a Dodger fan, so she put blue and white in there.
Oh, there you go.
All
there you
blue and
go.
white. It must have been torture for somebody whose family loves the Giants.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, at the fair, they're on display up at the Pokerville Hall, which is
Pokerville Hall.
about midway up on the midway.
Yes, and it's also where all of the art is on display and the food items, so I can spend plenty of time there. There's over 50 quilts, I believe, that are being displayed.
Okay.